when you bring in an agent into the framework where that agent can use their email and the domain to look up information about the company. And then like ours does like press releases, it looks up Crunchbase data, it looks up blog posts by the company, and then it does like LinkedIn profile and blogs written by that person to personalize the email. So the email, if it was being written to me, it would be something like, hey, congratulations on your speaking slot at Anticon in London. Hope you had safe travels. Like getting an email like that, that's completely automated and written by it blows your mind a little bit.
What's up, everyone? Today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Stephen Stouffer, Director of Automation Solutions at Tray.ai. Stephen, I wanted to start by thanking you for being the first ever returning guest on the Humans of Martech. We've never had the same person on the show twice, so welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege.
We had Stephen on earlier in the year in episode 112, where we unpacked practical wonders of combining AI tools with iPaaS solutions. At the time, you were still working in the agency world, but you've since made the move to in-house, and it's very fitting to see you land at Tray, an iPaaS tool that has been innovating a bunch in AI. We could probably skip like the full career journey if folks are curious for that. Check out part one of our conversation there. But we started chatting again when you were in conference planning mode, right? Like I know you're doing the speaking tour right now at a couple different spots. You were just at Anticon. So today's episode is going to be kind of a deep dive in customer journey mapping and how AI is really disrupting this use case. So for the folks who haven't had the pleasure of taking part in traditional customer journey mapping exercises, maybe we can start by unpacking like what this entails for you exactly in your opinion, even before we get into like AI. What is customer journey mapping, Stephen?
Yeah. So if you sit in marketing, it might mean a little bit different things to different people. But generally, like if you go on your website and you use the 3-5-7 rule, right? You got 3 seconds to get someone's attention. You got 5 seconds to get them engaged, and then 7 seconds to get them to do something. So if you pull up your homepage, look at everything above the fold. That's what the first, you got 3 seconds to get someone engaged into that content. Is that doing it? Do you have too much content, not enough content? Is it unclear? And then does your button make sense? Is it visible on the page where they can click it within 7 seconds? And if they click that button, does it take them to, where you want them to go? And is that form easily accessible? Are too many questions, not enough questions? Are you getting the right information? So that's a very light version of kind of mapping out that customer journey and just making sure that it makes sense. But if you're something like a campaign manager or demand gen manager, you might care about the before steps to even getting to that page, right? The paid media ad. Is the ad copy aligning with the landing page that it's pointing to? So, mapping that out, storyboarding it out, and talking about the different profiles and the ICPs of the folks who are going to be hitting these different pages and the different experiences that you want each kind of role to take within your organization. So very high level, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah. It's fun exercises. Like the first time I did this was before the world went remote. So it was in-house at a startup. And we had a bunch of different cross-departmental folks in the room, and it was like stickies on the board, and people were just like, what is the typical journey that someone takes from not knowing us at all to potentially discovering that we exist, landing on our website? What do they do after that? Do they like go on to download an ebook? At the time, gated ebooks were like the like hot shit back in the day. And like after that, chatting with sales, if you're B2B, and then like what happens after that. So we had like customer success people in there, sales obviously, but like marketing, RevOps wasn't a thing back then. But now like it can be done like virtually also. Like I'm a huge fan, I know you are too, of like virtual whiteboarding tools, the Miros and the Lucid charts of the world. Like you can get pretty complex nowadays. Like if you're trying to, I like how you coined it as like just this one first thing of what is the web experience on that first web visit versus like what is the customer journey digitally mapping like all of those touch points. Like it gets pretty crazy pretty quickly.
And if someone wants a Miro board to like showcase the different aspects of this and they want to map it out, like shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. I have one built. So
Nice.
I'd be happy to share that. But Yeah, it just depends on where you sit and what you care about, but even email, right? Like the subject line is that 3 seconds, is are you getting their attention within 3 seconds with that subject line? And then is the body of the email skimmable and does the button make sense? So yeah, it's a really fun exercise to go through. No matter if you're on the marketing side, sales side, or post sales on the customer success side. It's really important to go through.
Yeah. So how does AI change the way teams approach this mapping today? Like, I don't know if RevOps teams or more marketing ops teams would tackle this, but where does AI come into this?
Yeah, across the board. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm running into situations where I just ran a demo at Anticon off in London when it came to triggering personalized emails. So when someone fills out a form, my demo essentially, they just give me their first name, their last name, and their email address, and I could create an entire personalized email to that person written by AI. A good email, right? So not just ChatGPT, write me an email for this person where it's a little generalized and kind of an AI bot, but when you bring in an agent into the framework where that agent can use their email and the domain to look up information about the company and then pull their LinkedIn posts and their comments and their job experience, like that email being sent out now suddenly is really, really personalized, saving marketing the headache of creating those variable fields and saving sales the headache of, creating a whole process of research that might take 15, 20 minutes just to craft an email that might not actually get opened or the email might not be good. Right. So
Mhm.
like that is a real two really interesting use cases from a marketing and sales perspective of how AI can just ease the burden of either purchasing tools on the marketing side, enrichment providers, or sales, just time to value.
Gotcha. So instead of just using a simple LLM prompt about like,
Yep.
hey, this is the very basic stuff I know about this person, let's use an agent, so to speak. I think like agents have like a bit of a bad rep. Like folks like they were part of the hype cycle really early on, and
Uh-huh.
folks kind of like turned down on them. But when we played around with them on the show and like our deep dive on AI tooling, it was still pretty early days. But essentially, the way that we're kind of like exploring with it is like instead of like just one prompt and then you have an output,
Yep.
you can give step-by-step instructions to an agent or
Mhm.
even, like, suggest the goal,
Yep.
and then the agent will tell you, like, what the steps are, and then there's multiple, like, bots that go in and
Right.
do the research. They scrape this or they scrape that. They find the URL for this, and then they're using an enrichment tool, and so, like, is that connected to an iPaaS tool? Like, is this, like, where Tray kinda comes into things a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we built it all within our platform. So like
Okay.
that infrastructure is built on the Tray platform, at least internally here and what our customers are doing. But it's exactly what you said, right? So when you think about an agent, it's just using the best tool for the job. So you have
Yeah.
access to OpenAI, Anthropic, Google API, LinkedIn API, all of that. So that gets plugged into the Tray platform. And then based off of the instructions, like you mentioned, and the context that you give it and the role that you give it, it's like, oh, this is a marketing email. I have their email address. I'm supposed to be crafting an email on behalf of this person. Then let me go look up relevant content. Like ours does like press
Mm.
releases. It looks up Crunchbase data. It looks up blog posts by the company, and then it does like LinkedIn profile and blogs written by that person to personalize the email. So the email would be something like, if it was being written to me, it would be something like, hey, congratulations on your speaking slot at Anticon in London. Hope you had safe travels. Like w- getting an email like that, that's completely automated and written by it blows your mind a little bit. Like it would take probably a BDR or an ISR to actually write that probably like 15 minutes to do all that research.
Yeah.
So it's really cool once you can kind of get your hands on like a tangible use case versus like, some of them that are out there that are, you're like, okay, that sounds great, but like, what's the realisticness of me being able to like implement this? So,
Right.
yeah, if someone wants to try it out, I got a demo I could share about that the whole personalized email. So yeah, it was fun to show that and just kind of see people the minds be blown in the audience a little bit.
Like, shit, I'll stop using ChatGPT for my outbound emails now.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the challenges that teams are facing when they could be implementing, like, I don't know what we call this, like AI driven customer journey or personalizing emails. Like, are you focused on the initial prompt? Like, is it always going to have, like, the human is still figuring out what the goal is? Like, the example you just walked us through is more of like the outbound use case, right? Like,
Hmm.
maybe someone doesn't know about the company or the product that we're selling, and that outbound email is personalized by AI. Instead of spending 16 minutes writing a good outbound email that's personalized, AI is hooked up to a bunch of enrichment tools to be able to do that stuff. Like, what are some of the main challenges aside from mapping out, like, what are the different goals? Where can we use this in the journey? Because it's not just like outbound based emails, right?
Yeah. I'd say a few things. One, just the technology is ambiguous. Like, I think it's difficult even for fairly technical people to wrap their head around how to build these types of tools within their organization. Two, connecting the data to make the relevant prompts, right? Like using an agent architecture, you have to use and pull data from all your different kind of systems, your CRM. Are they a customer? What kind of products do they have? Which product would make sense for us to recommend based on their existing usage or SKUs that they have? So connecting the data is its own thing. It's like everything getting up to writing the prompt, right? I think anyone can write a prompt, but feeding it the context for that
Right.
prompt is the tricky bit. And then I'd say like the third big thing would be just security, like worried about what is it that we're giving the LLM model? Do I have to be SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA
Mm,
compliant, GDPR compliant? Like a lot of times people don't even really understand the rules and regulations and they don't even want to try building something because they're worried about, the legal implications of if they don't do it right. So like those are the three big things, right? So just wrapping your head around what the heck it is, getting tapped into the data to kind of start writing that prompt, and then, compliance and regulations and the headaches that follow.
what's a good starting point for someone who's like trying to figure out, let's take the use case of outbound there. Like, I want
Yep.
to equip my SDR team with Tray plus like a couple of agents and enrichments that makes it way easier for them to do personalized outbound email.
Yep.
As like, is the marketing ops or the rev ops team like building that, first initial use case for this? Like, what's the first step to mapping this out? Like, how do people map out the contexts, all the data required to feed into that
Mm.
tool? Do you start with like a whiteboarding session? Is it like a spreadsheet? You're
Yeah.
making a list of like everything that's required to feed. Like, what's the first step to doing that?
So just from an implementation perspective, I'd gather the requirements and then start simple. Like don't try to build a big, massive agent. Maybe just start with tapping into LinkedIn or just Google, or
Okay.
even just starting with OpenAI, right? Like the email might not be super personalized, but like getting to that step is good. But follow me on LinkedIn, DM me. I'm happy to do a coffee chats. I do kind of like non-salesy coffee chats.
Cool.
And then if you want, from a trade perspective, just the way we think about it, we host free AI agent workshops like every
Mm.
single week. So we'll give you access to our platform for free. You can pop the hood, play around with it, and at least start to wrap your head around the different use cases and actually touch the technology a little bit. So whether or not you want to become a trade customer, it doesn't matter. The workshops are for everybody.
Okay, cool. We'll make sure to link out to that stuff for sure.
Yeah,
If like, I'm trying to think of other use cases for this. Like, we're harping on outbound here, and maybe some of
sure,
the folks are just
sure.
like allergic to outbound. But let's take like Lifecycle for example.
Uh-huh.
Like, Lifecycle comes into a lot of customer journey mapping exercises, right? Because like, you don't stop driving revenue after that first acquisition journey is done. There's a
Hmm.
whole like monetization, activation, getting people to create those like habit loops, whatever, right? Like, that's where Lifecycle kind of comes in. And let's say that we're trying to use this same type of AI driven insights for lifecycle marketing. The thing that I struggle with, like bringing this from theory to actual hands on keyboard, like we're delivering something, is that in lifecycle, we're often building this like library of content.
Hmm.
And we have content that's specific by persona, content that's specific by like stage of the journey where they are in like building something. So how do we feed the content that existing today and connect that to AI so that we can obviously use that to personalize the outreach.
Yeah.
But like, how does AI know which is the best content to send to that person based on where they are in that life cycle journey?
Yeah.
And is AI changing that content a lot? Like, how are
Yeah.
you prompting that? Like, just I know there's a bunch of questions in there.
Yeah. So I don't know what everyone else is doing, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you what I'm doing. So you can de-anonymize your web traffic using
Okay.
something like Clearbit Reveal or, a handful of other enrichment providers. If you could de-anonymize that and link it back to a person, a contact, a lead within Salesforce, or even using the cookies through, Pardot, Marketo, HubSpot, right? There's all sorts of de-anonymizing things you can tap into, assuming you have one of those platforms. What you can do is you can call out to your CRM from that, having their domain at minimum, or maybe even the person themselves. And you can look at their contact. You can see if there's what account they're tied to, what open opportunities is the opportunity, closed one. If it is closed one, what kind of products and services do they have? And then you can bring that information back to your website, and then you can start to influence what shows up. So when you think about like Pardot dynamic content, like this is like dynamic content on steroids. This is an entire custom personalized landing page from your homepage to anything else you want to influence based off of information that you have on that person. So, lifecycle management, let's say they are a customer and they have, your baseline product, your homepage could push them to the next tier up, right? Or instead of saying get a demo on the top right of your screen, their customer, it could be reach out to customer support and or link it to your account manager's Calendly link, right? So you're removing those friction points along the customer journey by being able to be intelligent on what you offer up. So, partially getting connected into that data using something like Tray to push and pull the data between your systems, and then using AI to be more intelligent on what it is that you're offering up.
Cool. Yeah. The life cycle use cases is fun here because you don't have to de-anonymize a ton of stuff sometimes. Like from web
Yep,
visits, I get it. But if you're using email as the use case, for example, you have that person's email already, so you don't have to
exactly.
skirt privacy regulations with those de-anonymization tools. But
Hmm.
so how do you come up with the content to surface though? Because I feel like that's part of my question is like right now, a human is deciding we're going to send out an email on day 3 after someone converts to 1.
Yep.
And that third email does really good at telling someone what are the other features in the product. And
Yeah.
maybe you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
bit of logic in there because it's listening with it's connected to the behavioral analytics tool and you can see if they've done X, Y, or Z.
Yep.
So the email on day 3 is not going to be about X or Y if they've already done those things and it's really focusing on Z. Like those are rule based like journey
They
orchestration,
used to
right?
be.
Right now, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
like leading into my question. Like
Yeah.
how do you give that information from the context of the content that you're currently sending out to folks
Hmm.
to your AI system so that it does like a better job than like the rule-based stuff that folks are doing today?
Yeah, I feed it a document. So I have a document, it's one place, centralized location where sales and marketing can both influence it. And the
Okay.
document essentially outlines the different products, outlines the messaging for each product, and then who the best ICP would be for that product, right? So using our kind of expansion or our cross-sell upsell kind of as a use case, I can say, oh, hey, this is our mid-level tier. The person who this is going to be best fit is who's on our base tier, right? And I just have that in a document. I feed it to AI. So AI has
Okay.
the context of all the different options, how we talk about those different options and who it would be good for. And then AI determines the best one for the job. So like the old world would be we would have this like mind map if else statements where
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's this stage or if it's this, if it's this. No, you just feed the data of who that person is, where they are in their organization, what their stage is. Also feed it the document, and then it picks the best tool for the job or the best product or service offering for the job, and then levels that up in the email, levels it up on the landing page. So you're not kind of gone are the days where you have to kind of map all this out on a whiteboard with sticky notes.
hmm Is the next phase of that also feeding it historical data on
Sure.
what's worked and what hasn't worked in the past?
Yeah, that's one piece I haven't done yet, which I'm really excited to do. So One thing that I'm thinking about right now as a use case is actually our outreach sequences. So like
Mhm.
looking at the data, the open rate, the click-through rates, and then telling that to AI, giving that to AI before it writes the email, where it can actually go look at specific emails and say, okay, this one email from this rep is performing really, really good, and then
Mhm.
replicating that success. So I haven't dipped my toes into that, but you're 100% right. Like that is where we're going is feeding it context of the different offerings that you have, feeding it information about the person, the company, the opportunities, the products, and then also looking at historical performance. So like
Yeah.
from a landing page perspective, Google Analytics data, right? Which pages are performing the best? What are those layouts? What are those offerings? What color are the buttons? And then replicating it.
Mhm. And I think, like, even taking this a step further, like, I think the step after that is, like, obviously the historical data helps with the potential for something to resonate and perform better. But then you can also use AI to have real time incrementality and experimentation
Hmm.
within everything that you're doing. So you're always splitting out cohorts and having a control group, and
Hmm.
it's consistently learning on, even though that I'm looking at the document and Steven and the sales team says that this is the right message for this perfect expansion target,
Yep.
and you're sending that out. But then AI is sending out a different version of that to someone else, and all the different versions all have control groups, and it's learning the lift that certain message has, and eventually, like you have a big volume of stuff, and there's like incremental dollars associated to messages, and you always know what's more optimal. So I feel like for some folks listening, it's just like, this is futuristic shit,
Yeah.
but we're actually really close to this. And
Yeah.
I chatted with some folks last year that more on the B2C world, like had some of this stuff built in already, and especially like enterprise teams. Like we had Paul Wilson on the show, like former Slack, Salesforce, and myself too. Like I had a short stint at WordPress.com, the enterprise company, and like there was a ton of data scientists that were working on this shit, right?
Hmm.
Like I think that you're an incredibly technical marketer thinking like way differently than most technical marketers. There's a lot of data scientists that, have been doing this for 20, 30 years, right?
Yep.
Like machine learning shit is very simple to them. And at WordPress, we had like an internal customer data platform, and every event that we tracked, our data science team built a UI for all the marketers to use.
Mm.
And we could pick any of those events that were tracked and create a propensity model on that event to see the likelihood that someone
Yep.
would convert
Mm.
or would churn or would convert from paid or from free to paid. And
Hmm.
so every time it came to do a campaign, we could do it manually and say, like, instead of saying, I want to send this email out to the last 30 people that started a free trial, we could say, I want to send this email out to the last people that started a trial in the last 30 days that are more likely to convert to paid if
Yep.
I give them a 30% discount.
Mm.
And so there's like all the uplift modeling that goes into that. So I don't know. I feel like this
Yeah.
whole world of journey orchestration and using propensity models, like even takes this a step further in AI personalizing
Yep.
and like adding experimentation on top of all the messages. Like shit's getting wild.
It is, and the job of, me and, like, Trey and our organization is to make it where someone can do this easily and they can
Mhm.
wrap their heads around it. Because that's the problem right now is,
Yeah.
like, not everyone has a whole bunch of data engineers, in their organization to deploy this, and if you wanna keep up with your competitors, you're gonna have to do it, but, like, everyone's trying to do more with less right now. Budgets are tight. So like the job of me and like my team here is to make this easy, accessible, and something that everybody can do. So like that's the challenge right now. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, we can do all these amazing things today if you know how to do it. But for most people, it's just out of reach. So we got to fix that.
Yeah, yeah, for all startups or any
Yeah.
company that doesn't have like a massive data science team, like it is out of reach, and it's not as simple as saying like just one tool or like one data engineer is going to fix this for you. Like I feel like there's and maybe one of the thesis or like missions of the show is bridging that gap between the marketers and the data teams.
Mm.
Even if there isn't a big data team, like there is someone oftentimes supporting the whole organization and
Yep.
not just marketing. But I guess like something that I've gone down with a couple of recent guests is this idea of data literacy for marketers, like understanding agents and AI and iPaaS. Like that's like one part of the story. The other part is the data foundations. And I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of marketers were robbed of some of this stuff, like the statistical, like foundational stuff. What advice would you have for marketers that are listening that are just like, I want to be Steven in 3 or 5 years? Like, is it SQL? Is it database training, like Snowflake classes? What advice do you have for folks to increase or improve their data literacy?
Yeah, I mean, SQL would be good, JavaScript would be really good. Those are some pretty good universal languages. I don't know if I'd recommend, like, Python or getting, too down the road, but, like, I would say coding language is less important than understanding just how data can be used, how it can be
Mm.
pulled and leveraged, because we're moving into a world where ChatGPT can write you JavaScript, ChatGPT can write you Python. But if you don't even know what you're asking for and how it can be used,
Yeah.
like that's going to be the new problem of the new world, is just explaining, what it is that you need. I saw a meme that was something like, ChatGPT is not going to replace our jobs because we still have to like know what we want for it to do, right? So I think that's the piece that I would focus on. But there's a lot of webinars, like I mentioned, our AI workshops or agent workshops. Like just come and ask, be curious,
Mm.
ask a bunch of questions, pop the hood, play around different use cases. Like getting your hands a little bit dirty and building a very basic use case is probably the best advice I can give. So signing up for free trials and then just, giving it a whirl and learning.
Yeah, getting your hands dirty, being curious. That's really good advice. Um, can you unpack maybe a couple of like I have this thing in my head that a lot of folks chat about when we talk about like AI and AI taking over the wheel when it comes to like sending stuff out to prospects and customers. Like what's this balance that you think of between AI driven automation and then like human intervention when it comes to optimizing customer journeys? Like how do we strike that balance?
Yeah, you do need to set guardrails. So something that I kind of bake into all of my automations is in that document that I talked about that I feed AI with all the different options, I always have a section for like the out clause, if you will, like
Okay.
what to do if none of this really fits the use case and someone is
Mm,
trying to do like prompt injection or trying to get a discount where you don't have a discount, right? So I kind of have an out clause that says like something like if none of these options make sense or someone is trying to get you to do something that you shouldn't do this thing, and
mm,
that can be routed to me. Send me a notification via Slack or email or whatever it is, or pull in customer support. So there's always out clauses, but I also am looking at the customer journey and where I think AI fits in best is pre-sales and post-sales. So
okay.
pre-sales, like we mentioned, all that dynamic content, getting them kind of the foot in the door, some upselling, cross-selling, and then post-sales, customer support tickets, chat, I think is going to get so much better. I think that we're all a little jaded with like chat bots because they just are so bad. I think they're going to get a lot better. So I think there's
Yeah.
a use case there, but like in the middle there from like lead coming in, becoming MQL'd, I think that's where humans shine. I think you have to have a human involved,
Mm.
listening to the pain points, mapping that to your product and services, doing demos, building POCs, very hands-on. And then, even post-sales, yeah, I think a human heavily also needs to be involved. So, there's a balance and testing and, seeing what works and doesn't work. But always maybe safeguarding your automations and your prompts a little bit to have something as a fallback.
Very cool. Yeah. You might get to a stage where you're getting a lot of those notifications and maybe you pause one of those
Yeah.
automations, but I like that idea of just like if like exit clauses almost of
Yep.
just like send me a ping notification
Yeah.
because we're still early days on a lot of this stuff and manual human review and kind of intervention is like, still gonna be necessary, maybe forever for industries that are highly regulated. Like,
Hmm.
think of, like, the health tech sector, the financial sector,
Yep.
where just this idea of letting AI decide the messaging, especially if you're bringing in like confidential information and PII inside of messaging,
Yeah.
like shit
And
can get
I
pretty hairy pretty
wouldn't like
quickly.
you
Yeah.
got to be very careful with that. So like something that we have Merlin Guardian in like the Tray platform that tokenizes that sensitive information before sending it to something like
Okay.
an LLM. So like things like that, like those are like the foundational points that I think people need to wrap their head around.
Mhm.
So yeah, attend one of our workshops. I think it'd be very helpful to folks to kind of see tangible use cases of like how they could do this in a meaningful way where they're, you're HIPAA compliant, SOC 2 compliant, GDPR compliant. Like there's a lot of things you have to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe walk us through like give us a teaser of like those use cases. Like maybe one like AI powered journey mapping that had measurable impact on revenue growth.
Sure. Yeah. So, this was actually at my previous company. We actually had the trade platform. And I had a customer that did LinkedIn lead gen forms. So they had like, the LinkedIn ads that popped up and then you put in your information and then it got sent to the Tray platform. So one issue was before we built that, it was export import, right? So they exported a CSV once a week, sometimes like every other week. So it was taking 7 to 14 days to get that information into Salesforce and then to sales. So
Mm.
if you're in marketing or sales, like time matters, right? So like from when you submitted a form to exporting and importing that into Salesforce, doing all the cleaning of the data and then importing it, like 14 days later, you might be like, who are you? Like, what did I sign up for? Right.
Yeah.
So we automated all of that. And the reason why it was so manual is because for those of you LinkedIn lead gen forms, the state and country values are open text fields. They're not pick lists. So
Yeah.
someone, can type in whatever they want. It can be outside the region that you support. So you have to clean all of that up. So we actually just had AI clean it up. We said, hey, here are all the values that we accept. And for those that don't fit this value, your exit clause is like just put an unknown, right?
Mhm.
So you have that fallback value. And then we turned around a 14-day process and it took 20 milliseconds essentially from lead submitted to getting it into Salesforce. So we saw an uptick. Oof, you're stretching my memory here. I think we saw an uptick to like 40 to 50% of conversion rates from MQL to sales qualified in a stage one opportunity being created. So like, one simple automation with 3
Mm.
steps in it: intake, clean it up with AI, send it to Salesforce, create the lead or contact, had a 50, 60% conversion rate impact. So like, you don't have to start complicated. It could be just a simple, lead intake from, LinkedIn being your use case.
Yeah, the impact on conversion rate, also the impact on improving the life of that revenue operations or
Yeah.
marketing ops person that was doing the CSV imports. I feel like a lot of folks listening
Yeah. Well, and the
do this
customer,
regularly.
and then like the potential customer, like, can you
Right.
imagine the frustration of just like wanting to sign up for a demo and then not getting it for 14? Like, I think we've all had those situations, right? So yeah, just across the board, it just makes everyone's life. And then from a data integrity perspective, like it's cleaning the data into your standardized formats of, state codes or country or state names, like just to be able to do that on the fly. It makes a huge impact.
Yeah. Okay. Is there another one that comes to mind?
Oh, that's a good one. I've seen, this is more recent, but I've seen an uptick in conversion rates on emails using personalization. So I mentioned like
Hmm.
the demo I did in Anticon, like I did that during my presentation and I've had a flood of people who have responded to that. So like even just me personally, like I've seen a big uptick in just conversion rates of emails using AI. So like that's a big one that I've run into today. And it was like a conversion rate of um like it was like 5% and went from 5% to like 15% of email, like people responding back to emails and like setting up a coffee chat with me. So uh it's been exciting to see, but my time on my calendar has become a little less available. So it's a blessing and a curse, I guess.
What do you think is good advice for like rev ops, marketing ops teams who are trying to future proof their tech stack to stay ahead of all of these trends and changes? Like, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the audience, and I've got like a mile long list of shit on my backlog. And
Yep.
as much as this stuff is exciting and I want to get my hands dirty and, like you said, like be curious and attend those workshops, like got a day job, Steven, and like a
Yep.
bunch of shit is like drowning me in work. Like, what's your tips for, or like your ideal advice for companies trying to like future proof their tech stack and staying ahead of stuff?
Yeah. Well, subscribe to Humans of Martech. Stay up to date on all the trends. There you go. Your free
Boom.
yeah, there you go. Uh, I would say, like, be mindful of where you spend your time during the day and just make
Mhm.
note of it, right? Like, are you spending 3 hours a day going through emails? Like, what are those manual tasks that you're doing? And just try to automate to make your life easier. Because if you can do that and free yourself up, then you can spend, another 45 minutes to an hour doing research and attending workshops and going to webinars. But more importantly, you're gonna be finding, like, the tangible things to make your life easier today for yourself and your organization while also learning. So just try to automate and, optimize what you're doing where you are, and don't try to go, across the organization or in other departments, like, solve problems that you have today. And then
Mhm.
you're gonna learn, and then once you learn, you're gonna kind of expand your knowledge a little bit, and then you can kind of your problems are gonna shift and they're gonna be a little bit different, and then you get to solve those.
Very cool. I feel like you touched on this one already a little bit, but what advice would you give to marketing ops folks who are like really early in that let's explore AI journey? Like they're listening to this and they're just like, guys, I can't even get my team to use ChatGPT, like let alone thinking about how to implement AI and like our customer journey mapping exercises. Like, what are the first steps to like convincing senior management folks to care about this? Like a lot of folks are doing 2025 planning by the time this episode is going to be dropping. Like, what are some of the first steps that people should be doing to explore like the early use cases?
Yeah, that's tough. I know that in our organization, we have a dedicated champion. Another thing that I've
Cool.
seen some of our customers, so it's like, you need to have at least one person, right? One person that you kind of task with pushing the bounds while everyone else is busy, right? And then what happens is another person in another team realizes what that person's is doing. They kind of want to
Mm,
do a little bit more. And then you kind of organically are attracting the right people that should be working on it in your organization. Another thing that I've seen that is really interesting that some of our customers here at Tray are doing is they're doing hackathons. They're doing AI hackathons, right? Where they're dedicating a single day where it could be just one team or one department or across your entire organization where you have different department teams or cross collaboration mix up of different people from different teams. And it's just for fun. It's like, hey, here's OpenAI, here's Anthropic, here's the different tools that we have. Let's just build something just for fun internally
mm,
to see what we can do and see if we can measure the impact. And then you just kind of let everyone go wild with maybe some guardrails of like what the problems that they should be solving. But we've seen a lot of fun and an excitement from executives once they can see how it can apply to their organization. They're much more likely to put budget and adopt it. And then if you're a bigger company, board members and whatnot, having them see kind of like the way you're thinking about future proofing the business and stuff, it can make a measurable impact all the way up from top.
very cool. Great advice. Yeah, I'll hit you up with a couple last ones here. This has been super interesting. What advice do you have for folks that like maybe are looking at all the different disciplines under marketing operations? Maybe we'll keep it to marketing
All
operations and
right.
just like
Yeah.
marketing. Like what are some of the areas that you think are going to become less important in 5, 10 years because of these advancements that we chatted about today? And what are some of the disciplines or specializations that you think folks listening like, hey, pause work on that stuff. Like you said, like look at where you're spending your time today. Like pause work there and like double down in this area over here. Like you kind of talked about like data literacy there, but
Mhm.
what is there anything that comes to mind? Like this is less exciting. This is an area that's way more exciting for you.
Yeah. You're I don't know if I'm gonna be making any friends here now. I I would say that there is within paid media, PPC, building search queries and stuff, like kind of hacking the internet so your pages kind of come up first. I honestly think that's all going to change. The way the internet works is changing. You go to Bing.com, it looks a lot different today than it did 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So from a marketing perspective, I think worry less about filling keywords within landing pages, because a lot of that stuff is, I think, just going to be dynamic. And then the way the algorithms work today and going in the future, it's going to change. So like, we kind of need to stop the idea of trying to hack our way to the first page and think in terms of just building the best content and solving customer pain points. And then before you know it, the lead sources that are going to be coming in are going to be from AI sources. They're not going to be Google and Bing. It's going to be ChatGPT, Anthropic, right? So um, don't try to game the system, and just do what's best for your customers, and just and make it as easy as possible for them to do business with you. And then I think you're going to be rewarded in like the future that's being built right now.
Do you still heavily use Google search as much as you did like
No,
5 years ago?
I don't. No, nope.
Yeah, I'm a heavy Perplexity user,
Okay.
especially for like so like I'm doing the podcast full time
Hmm.
now, but I still keep my hands dirty with a couple of clients on the side, like doing a bit of consulting, and I find that like I hope they're not listening to this stage, late stage in the conversation, but I utilize Perplexity all the time. So
Yeah.
like one of the services I offer, like they're connected in my Slack and they can ask me questions asynchronously throughout the day and I answer async. I will oftentimes just copy paste that question in Perplexity and see if there's like a quick, fast answer already.
Mm.
Perplexity is way better than I find so far, like than ChatGPT at connecting like all the docs with some of those tools. Like a lot of it is like
Hmm.
questions. And so like it surfaces the answers by looking at like developer docs on those tools and finds like other community sourced articles.
Yeah.
But yeah, huge fan of Perplexity. That's like really changed the game on like how I find answers online. Like I don't use Google search that often anymore.
Nope. Nope. I've been using ChatGPT now for a long time, from code development to answering questions to coming up with like LinkedIn post ideas. Like it's wild how much my behavior has changed in like the last 2 years, 2.5 years, when compared to like the last decade of being in operations. Like it's wild to think how much like the day-to-day work of just how we operate has been changed.
Yeah, I need to play around with Claude more,
Oh yeah.
and Anthropic's tool. Like,
Hmm.
everyone talks about it, and I only played around with the free version. I was comparing that to like the pro version or ChatGPT 4.0,
Yeah.
and ChatGPT 4.0 is still like miles ahead of Claude. So I need to like pay for a couple months and just like put it to the test, like the pro version of it. But like when you said like you're using it for LinkedIn post ideas, like that's Anthropic, not ChatGPT, or still ChatGPT?
A little bit of both. I
Okay.
actually feed it through both. But what I've done is actually exported my entire profile from LinkedIn. You can request your data, request it, and then upload it into like a knowledge base for ChatGPT or what your AI tool of choice. It can recommend like topics a lot more personalized than you having
Mm,
to kind of like hack it. So I don't know if you've done that before, but
no.
it's pretty interesting. Yeah. Request your data from LinkedIn, give it to an AI model, and you've essentially like replicated like your tone of voice, topics and industries that you care about, and then it can recommend it's pretty good. It will recommend some pretty good topics and stuff.
Uh,
Yeah.
very cool. So
Yeah.
like the export is like a JSON file format that
Ye
you just
Yep,
upload?
yep, it'll
Okay.
it'll give you, like, connections that you have, so, like, you have kind of who your ICP is, right, your followers, and then you
Uh,
also have, like, all of your posts, your comments, like, just a history of kind of how you've interacted with LinkedIn, and giving that as context is pretty interesting.
very cool. I appreciate that tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, any parting thoughts? Like any other tips or things that are top of mind right now that you think folks that are still listening clearly are like excited about AI stuff and marketing? Anything else you want to drop?
Yeah, like, just get out there, build out some fun use cases, and if you're not really sure where to start, connect with me, I'd be happy to do a coffee chat. show you kind of like what I've been up to and what I've been working on. And if you're a Tray customer, I have templates that I can export and import into your org. So I can just give you what I've been working on. Um, but yeah, it's fun times to be working with AI. It's the future. So the quicker that you can kind of wrap your head around it and start bringing value to organization is you're going to be future proofing your role within the organization, which I think all of us are kind of feeling a little bit of angst. So, uh, figure out AI, at least a couple base use cases, and go start from there.
Awesome. We'll make sure to link out to the workshops that you do at Tray.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a ton of other useful resources and content on the site, but yeah, we'll link that to your LinkedIn. I think you're a super fun follow on top of just like the AI stuff. I think there's a lot of comedy and comic relief, I guess, from the marketing ops stuff. So
Yeah,
appreciate
and
you.
trying to not take myself a little bit too seriously. But thanks for having me again. It's an honor again to be here and chat with you again.
Yeah, man. Appreciate your time. We'll chat again soon.
All right, thanks.